Holy cow, it is cold out today. We've had a drastic temperature drop, a big weather system come through. All last week we were in the, low 60s or mid 60s, high 60s, low 70s, somewhere right around in there, just unseasonably warm. Nighttime temperatures getting down in the mid 40s. Last night, or yesterday actually, a little bit of a cold front come through. It was pretty cool yesterday, but last night, man, it dropped bad. I mean, it's 10 degrees Fahrenheit out here, and that's not even factoring in the wind chill. So it's negative with the wind chill. It is cold. Now, I know that's not as cold as some people get, but that's a big swing in temperature. I'm not acclimated to it yet, so I'm struggling a little bit. We're gonna go see how the birds are doing out here, the quail. I'm sure they're fine, but we're gonna go check on them anyway. I gotta take some water out to them. So I did take down the watering system yesterday, or I took the cups out anyway, so they didn't freeze up. And we're gonna see how they're doing. There's been a lot of questions coming from people asking about how quail do in the cold, or how they do in drastic temperature changes. Usually they do just fine. They acclimate to this stuff. They're pretty tough birds, so it's usually not a big concern. But we're going to see, because this was a drastic change in temperature. Like I said, in the 70s and all the way down to, let me get the camera set here, all the way down to 10 degrees. So I don't see any birds out here. Let's bring you in a little bit closer. We'll see how they're doing. I'll open up the cage here. Take a look at these guys. Look at that. They're doing just fine. Not a single bird lost. They're not even sitting around shivering or anything. Well, a few of them shaking a little bit, but for the most part, they look pretty good. Hopefully you can see in there. It's kind of dark, I know. All right, let's get them some water. Now, I've talked about this in plenty of videos. Looks like they need some food too. I'll get that taken care of. This is what I use for a water in the wintertime. Because now you can see I did fill it up with some water yesterday. They drank quite a bit of it. It's got ice in the bottom of it. Now I don't want to bust this ice out because it'll break this container. But it's just a simple Tupperware style container with some holes cut in it. The birds can get their heads in there and drink. So let's get it opened up here. And I'll just fill it not even quite halfway. Just put some water in here so they can get a drink. Now that I think about it, I might actually want to move it over there to the sandbox side, because they're hanging out on the sandbox side, so this will make it a little bit easier on them. Can't get my fingers to work. Get gloves on. Here we go. Here you go, guys. And let me give them some food. Oh, goodness. I am not used to this cold weather yet. It is definitely very chilly. Luckily the sun's out, so that does help a little bit. It was really cloudy this morning, had some snow coming down, but sun's come out now. That does help a little bit. See if we got birds drinking. Yeah, you can see they're kind of gathered around the water. They figured that out pretty quick. I don't know if you can see that. They've moved away now since I've opened it up, but they're actually doing just fine. All right, so there you have it. I know this has been a question that's come up quite a bit. People are concerned about, what temperature do I need to keep my quail at? Do I need to add supplemental heat to them when the temperatures drop? Or, talking about drastic temperature changes, any of those kinds of things. It's really not a concern. These birds are incredibly hardy. Like I said, we went from the 70s. The lowest temperature we've been getting over the last week and a half is probably low 50s, mid 40s at the most at night. And then we dropped down to, I think it got down to 9 degrees last night. It's about 10 degrees right now. So that's a pretty drastic temperature change. And you can tell these birds are doing just fine. And I don't know if you can see them in the cage right now, but you know, I opened it up, you can tell they're just fine. They're acting like nothing's bothering them at all. They're out here getting food, they're walking around like they normally do. They got themselves a drink whenever I added some water. Hardest part about wintertime is really just watering them because the water freezes. So I'll have to come back out again later this afternoon and add some more water, give them a chance to get a drink. Now I do have another one of those containers that's inside, so when this one gets full of ice, I'll switch them out. I can't knock the ice out of those because, like I said, it will break them. That plastic gets pretty brittle. But as long as you know, I just don't fill it up all the way, just give them a little bit because they'll only drink so much before it freezes anyway. I can get about 3 or 4 fills in that, you know, add water to it 3 or 4 times before it's full of ice, and I have to go take it in and thaw it out and switch it out with the other one. But still, a couple of times a day, got to bring water out to them. Other than that, that's it. As long as you have a good wind block for them, a good protected area where they can get out of the wind, out of the weather, you don't have to worry too much about drastic temperature swings. I honestly think the summertime heat, when it gets up to 90, 100 degrees, is harder on them than the wintertime cold. They seem perfectly content, perfectly happy here. None of them look lethargic. I didn't lose a single bird, and they're all just moving around just like normal. So hopefully that relieves your concerns a little bit if you are worried about it. Now I will say, you don't want to move baby quail, you know, 3-week-old birds from a 100-degree brooder box out into, you know, 10-degree weather like this. You want to give them a little bit of time. Now my birds that are in the brooder box right now, they're going on 2.5 weeks old. They're not quite ready to come out. In the summertime, when it's, you know, in the 70s at night and 80s and 90s during the day, it's fine. I could move them outside. But right now, they're not ready to come out. I've got them weaning off the heat lamp. I've got them down to 70 degrees. They're pretty comfortable at 70 degrees. So my next step in the next day or two, I'm gonna be moving it down to 65 degrees. Let them get acclimated to that. And then down to 60 degrees. And once they're acclimated to 60 degrees at about 4.5 weeks old to 5 weeks old, they should be ready to come right outside, handle the colder temperatures, no problem whatsoever. Again, as long as you have a wind block and a protected area that you can put them in where they're going to be able to get out of the wind, out of the rain, out of the snow, out of the weather in general, you don't have to worry about it. Anyway, this is a topic that I address pretty much every year, but I know for newer people, it's always a concern. Yeah, I don't have any rabbits right now. I did get rid of the rabbits. If you've been watching my videos, you know they've aged out where they're just not viable for breeding anymore, so I'm on the search for new rabbits. But the same thing applies to your rabbits, really. They handle the cold incredibly well. Even if you've got baby rabbits in a nest box in this temperature, they're fine. They're not going to have any problems as long as you can provide them some kind of wind block and protection from the weather. The cold doesn't bother them too much at all. They do just fine. You don't need to worry about providing extra heat lamps. And one thing I would say is it's probably best not to provide heat lamps or any kind of supplemental heat to your birds or your rabbits for that matter, because you don't want to get them acclimated to that heat. Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a huge fire risk to have a big heat lamp out here running in this thing. People have burned down their entire barns by using heat lamps. So it's a huge fire risk. It's something you don't want to risk that way. The other thing is you don't want to get them acclimated to, you know, that heat lamp being on all the time, and then you have a power outage and it's out and they're without heat. So then, you know, that could be a concern as well. But you can tell, I don't know how big of a concern that is, because you can tell that my birds are doing just fine with a drastic, I mean, we're talking a 60-degree, almost 70-degree drop in temperature over the last couple of days. And they're doing just fine. Hopefully that puts your mind at ease a little bit. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, God bless.